And good morning, and welcome to Waking Up with
Well,
with Juliana Filano and King Downing. We're ironing out some technical things, and it looks like we're going to be sharing the mic this time, just passing it around. So,
Well,
welcome.
we can start out with,
Oh, there you go.
oh, my board. It's a chaos in here. Well, we'll start out with our message from the King Sans, a sound effect. There it is.
We just got the last word in, but that's who we are. We always get in the last word.
You want me to do it again? Let's do it again for fun. It's very centering. Settles us.
Thank you, and please go back out into the fields. So this morning we have some news that's breaking. The legal team for Mumia Abu Jamal has filed new papers in his case, raising constitutional violations over his conviction. Lawyers from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the University of Delaware Law School have filed motions, and this is part of a long-standing case that went back to 1982 when he was convicted of a murder which he has vehemently denied over the years, and which increasing evidence has shown examples of wrongdoing by the prosecution. Some of the allegations that the constitutional violations that they're alleging are ineffective assistance of counsel, and that evidence that should have been provided to him by prosecutors that would have tended to prove his innocence was denied, and then rights violations of the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments, and also ineffective assistance of counsel and judicial misconduct. So all of these things have...
My understanding is they found a box of paperwork in the back of some closet.
Yeah,
Is that what they always don't? Can't they clean these closets out a little sooner?
Well, the interesting thing is that once a progressive DA ran for office and won, all of a sudden the boxes appeared. So we don't know whether he was more diligent in finding them. And the odd thing is that they found 6 boxes, but the boxes had at the end of 40. And so there's supposed to be a whole bunch of others somewhere that are missing.
Well,
so anyway, we're
exciting.
following this case. And
Of course. And you'll hear more from that. It is Thursday, 76 degrees outside, going up to 80 degrees today, mostly cloudy. We're looking at rainfall in the afternoon. Thunderstorms, in fact, isolated. Maybe possible during the morning, but mostly showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon. And then tomorrow, it's going to be cooling down back to what should be a normal for a New York September. 73 degrees without, 90% humidity. So it's a little weird out there. What can we tell you?
It's been rough.
It's going to be it has been rough. It's going to be a nice weekend. 73 degrees and mostly sunny. Friday, 76 degrees, mostly cloudy Saturday, and then Sunday, 83 degrees, but nothing like we have had over the past few days. Okay, joining us in the studio today, this is very exciting. This is doubly exciting because we worked to have our current guest in the studio, and we shamed him summarily on the day that he was unable to get here for his original... No, I'm kidding. Well...
The revolution needed me.
The revolution needed you. Charles Lenchner is joining us. He has already joined us, even early, I should say. So I appreciate that. Charles is from the Real News Network and also Organizing 2.0. And if you are an activist at all in New York, you already know who Charles Lenchner is. We dragged him out from under his rock to come to the show today. No, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be on your show finally. What's taken you so long?
It's been like 8 years since you were on the last show. Is
That's
that
right.
Yeah, that was fun. Well, okay, so tonight there is a debate with the quote top 10, Democrats, and you and I were talking about. Well, we were emailing, shall we say, about this thing between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. The New York Times reported that, Elizabeth Warren is quietly telling Democratic insiders that she's on their team, etc. And that article turned into a conversation we had about, are people who are supporting Bernie going to support Warren if she's the candidate?
Well, what a great question.
Now, we have a segment opening before you start that, because you are here because you can provide some information that we would consider insider baseball. Oh, little baseball.
This is the radio of my youth.
Yes,
Thank you.
And your elderlyhood.
So I get where you're coming from. We are witnessing on the progressive side of the field that Warren supporters and Bernie supporters are in uncomfortably close position to each other and are often competing.
Like right now in this studio, shall we say?
Yes, competing for votes.
Yeah.
And the problem here is that mostly the votes that Warren is collecting are not coming from places that were going to go for Bernie, and the places that Bernie's winning votes are not from places that would have gone for Warren. So
Can you be more specific?
yes,
Thank you.
pretend this is a like a March Madness bracket. They're in different brackets. The ones that they need to defeat in order to climb are not. It's not your team yet. That comes later. So in a sense, my argument would be is that we should take our lead from these two candidates who seem to have a functional alliance on the stage and in other ways. And they should be working together to diminish the vote for centrists and neoliberals of all stripes, without regard to the fact that maybe down the line they're going to have to be more competitive with each other.
Do you think we're going to see that tonight on the debate stage? Much is being made of Warren being on the debate stage with Biden for the first time.
Well, the only problem with making a prediction on the radio is that too many people will know if I'm wrong.
Oh, no one's.
But I believe that the functional alliance will continue. I
Yeah.
think that the top three candidates right now that we're looking at are Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders. And these three candidates are the main ones that voters get to pick from. The other ones are just further down the field, and I don't really think that they're going to rise that much. So it makes sense to diminish as much as possible Biden's candidacy, and let's see the moderates or the mainstreamers in the Democratic Party compete with each other for votes. But our two candidates should be winning those votes as hard as possible and not aiming fire at each other. That's the kind of behavior that would diminish the support for both of them and for each of them.
And it's a very Russian technique, right? Split us all against each other.
Exactly. We're finally in a moment when the donor class is divided about which candidate they think will work for them best. The one that they
The really rich guy, the old guy, the one who's a prosecutor against poor.
Yeah,
Which ones?
We got to be careful. I don't want to draw too many connections between big
You
pharma.
don't know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
and a local senator.
But they're divided, and our camp is mostly united on many big issues. Progressives do have similar positions, and it seems odd to press the differences between those things if we try and articulate, for example, that despite having many progressive policies, Elizabeth Warren is still secretly the same person she was when she was a Republican, or she still is desperate to win the approval of that donor class in order to win office. If that's the focus, what we're doing is we're moving voters away from the progressive column and outside of a political sphere where they can make a difference. Right now, we should want Bernie and Warren to dominate the field and drive everyone else to the margins, not sort of focus on fighting over the small percentage of folks who are undecided between the two.
And what do you make of the media's or the mainstream media's coverage of Warren, Bernie? Even that article I mentioned from the Times was, it's showing that she's busting her hump and doing a lot of outreach work, even in places that might not actually get her anywhere at this moment in time. But the Times painted it as if, secretly she's a mainstreamer.
Well, they would like that to be the case. And I would say it is fair to say that Bernie Sanders is a politician who spent many years in the wilderness, not having much traction as a national political figure outside of the self-identified left, which does not represent or did not represent a majority of Democratic Party primary voters. And that's changed. We now have, we've moved the Democratic Party very far to the left to a place where, overwhelming majorities support policies like Medicare for all. I mean, who would have thought 10 years ago that centrist candidates would be lying and pretending to support socialized medicine in order to curry favor with the youngs? That's we should be more interested in saying, yes, that's right, that's what you all have to do, and not say, oh, you're only pretending. We know that this is a talking point for you, and you're actually lying.
Do you believe that of all the other candidates outside of Bernie and Warren?
I think.
By the way, we're not allowed to support candidates here, so we're just getting your opinion.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What I would say is that there's not a law, but it seems to be true historically that politicians who promise things open themselves up to being held accountable to what they said. And politicians, by and large, do want to do the things that they say, even when they said it under duress. So rather than looking at politicians, making sure that they really mean what they say, not that that's irrelevant, we should be asking, okay, great, we got them to say this. How do we move that into the future and make them do it once they are in a position to do so?
Yes, that's a very activist position that you have there.
Yes. It's helpful to remember that I don't actually trust any politicians. I think the kind of skills and personality makeup that would cause you to be successful at winning votes make you unsuccessful at so many other things.
But Bernie seems so,
authentic?
let's say.
Well, I personally really enjoy the finger-wagging, angry old Jewish man thing.
It seems like a normal personality configuration.
I have
It's
been
not
practicing.
He's not like trying to win one over. It's not like he's putting that on.
I've been
He's pretending.
practicing to do him for years, even before I knew he did it. But someday I'll get there.
You'll get there.
Yeah, but here's one of the main things that it's important to emphasize, and this is about the makeup of the Democratic Party electorate in general. And here's what it is. We imagine that there are these blocks of voters who share both demographic and ideological profiles. That a group of people, your favorite demographic, maybe the one you belong to, there's some convergence of what would be good for your community and what positions you actually support. But the data show that that's just not true.
What?
It's not true.
People voting against their own interests on the Democratic side as well?
Well, not only against their own interests from time to time, but more that if you look, say, at the voters who are deciding between Bernie and Warren, the two left challengers who have a shot at winning, right? They're not the same people. They're different demographically, but they're not different in terms of the interests that they share.
Who's calling? I hear a phone in the background.
Someone wants to argue and
We
say,
have
no,
I
it's
think
not
we
true.
have the mics on really
Yeah.
highly. We want to make sure to catch every detail of what you're saying.
I'm now going to think hard at the mic.
And Charles, what you're saying is probably also true for half the people who vote Republicans. In fact, probably almost all the electorate, especially anybody who's, working class or struggling. It probably is true for everybody. But I want to ask you about the tug of war that pulls on politicians, because on one hand, you have these populist movements, which has moved the party to the left. These folks didn't suddenly read something or understand something. And then you have on the other side the pull of big money. So can you talk about how that tug of war is affecting everything?
Right. Well, first of all, let's just take a moment to celebrate the rise of the small donor. The amount of money going
Me.
the amount
Very
of,
small.
Very small. The amount of money going into our system is enormous. There's, billions of dollars going in, but an increasingly large share of it is coming from small donors, and politicians are forced to do what they can to get their slice of that small donor pie.
Being accountable to the people?
Well, I wouldn't go that far yet.
No.
It's still 2019.
Yes.
But the point is that shift, and this is being written about, has wreaked havoc on what the big donors can do, what they can demand. It is no longer the case that a bundler who can raise a few $1 million is enough of a superstar to get candidates to move over to what they're doing. Because even if that would have been their inclination, 4, 8, 12 years ago, there's not enough money in the system directly to your campaign from those kinds of folks. You need to get lots of those $27 donations to have an impact. And there's a recognition that the fight for those small donors is the same thing as the fight for volunteers. These are not completely separate constituencies that are door knocking for you and wearing your button and showing up for events and donating. These are very similar people. And the rise of this class is what's altered politics and forced the Democratic Party to move to the left. Of course, it helps that we have champions like Bernie Sanders, leading the way on many issues. And
it's very interesting because it's not like we overturned Citizen United and we cleaned up campaign finance reform and now we have good things. No, Bernie had a message that was saleable, and he ran his campaign on what is $27, the average donation of $27 last.
That's
run.
right. That's right.
And so he made that normal, and he made that I think, in my opinion, the basis for how we can trust a candidate, that they're not beholden to corporate interests.
And I think you're spot on.
Maybe they should line them up on the stage based on who has the biggest corporate donations versus who takes the least. That would be very interesting. And on the left, they should put the least.
We do have the data about what percentage of their donations are from folks who gave less than $200 or $250. And obviously Bernie Sanders is at one end, and certain other people, say Biden, are at the other.
Where does Warren stand in this?
She's not as good in this regard as Bernie Sanders, but I recall her being better than anyone else except Bernie Sanders. But you know what? I mean, just take a look at Marianne Williamson, who is not going to be the nominee. Sorry, Marianne. You can't.
But she's out there.
You can't pray your way there.
She's out there.
But
you don't know.
But the point is, using our system, using small donations, she's been able to get a national voice. And agree or disagree with it, there is something positive about small donations driving the rise of voices that in the past would have been mocked. I think about Dennis Kucinich.
You just mocked her.
I'm paying attention, though.
Yes.
I was on the Dennis Kucinich
she
campaign.
said she had some points. She said the thing about Trump's evil energy.
Yes.
And then everybody Googled it. I don't understand why people weren't Googling that in the first place. Can't you just see that with your eyeballs? Why do you need Marianne Williamson, God bless her, to tell you that?
A Babadook sequel is in the works.
I don't know what
evil energy. But it's good that we have these voices. When Dennis Kucinich ran in 2003 and 4, and more so in 2007 and 8, he was not sort of widely seen as a brave champion articulating important voices. He was seen a little bit as a joke who had no chance, and what was he doing there, taking time away from the important people like Howard Dean?
Well, didn't Trump fix that problem? Because everyone saw him as a joke, and he was a joke, and now he's the president, and he's still a joke. So that kind of opens up the field to anyone to be able to have a voice.
But now we have other people in the race. I mean, I'm just going to point out Julian Castro is looks like everyone's second choice. I don't want you to be president, but you look pretty good in D.C. doing something. That's good that we got to know him. Not that I'm a supporter.
Is he on the 10 tonight?
I don't remember. But he's Texan, so it'd be a shame if he wasn't. I think about Yang. No, I'm not a member of the Yang Gang, and I'm not here to stand for him. But I want to say, bringing the discussion around universal basic income and what that means, and the future of work, and many other issues, that's a contribution to our conversation.
I said the same thing. I even said about Marianne Williamson. She is talking about morality, and that is a nice thing to see on a stage. And Jay Inslee, when he was running about just the environment, which I thought was great, but he should have just stuck to the environment when he was answering questions about foreign policy. He should have coached everything in the environment, and that's why he dropped out, because he didn't follow my suggestions and advice clearly.
On a broader level, we are seeing a massification of Democratic Party politics, where you have many more entities competing for influence, larger numbers of people involved in the process, more reliance on the base, on grassroots donors. This is all a good thing. The losers, of course, are those who relied on structures of power built slowly and painfully over decades in the face of great resistance. And those parts of the Democratic Party are feeling a little butthurt right now.
What did you just say? Butthurt?
Butthurt.
Butthurt.
Yes, not one of the 7 words.
I'm checking. You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano. Let's open up our phone lines. We have Charles Lenchner with us, and our phone line is 212-209-2877. You can call us and ask a question or make a comment, and then Charles will comment back to you. Charles is he's an insider baseball guy. He knows about the backside, shall we say, of politics.
Yeah.
Not to go off your pun with another pun of my own, backside, etc. Hey, we've got
jokes,
sound effects. You're listening to Waking Up with Juliana and King. It is 20 minutes after the hour, and I do want to say quickly that at least the weather's going to be nice today. 76 degrees going up to 80. Mostly cloudy, but still a nice day. Not so hot. And then it's going to cool down after some thunderstorms this afternoon, possibly a few, depending on where you're listening from this morning. But they're looking at a big block of rain starting at around 1 o'clock. Charles, talk more about, do you see a lot of infighting between supporters of Bernie?
Oh, yes. Oh,
And
yes.
That's really what I wanted you on
So-
here for. 'Cause I know you know like every one of these people.
Well, first of all, let's remember so many of the people being active today got involved in politics 3-4 years ago around the Bernie Sanders campaign, when you basically had a binary choice. It was Hillary or Bernie, and that was that. And we had tropes like the Bernie bro, or the fantasy that his supporters were
It
somehow...
wasn't even real.
It
was
wasn't
mostly
even real.
women.
That's right. So folks have sort of been conditioned to respond to that environment where you support your person and everyone else is the enemy and rigged and corrupt and where are the emails, right? But now, we're in a different environment. Now we have lots of candidates. We have a lot of time. We've had a lot of time for the campaign, a lot of airing of views. For supporters of Bernie Sanders to treat every other candidate and their supporters as somehow part of a great mass of rigging, as was in some small way the case last time, is a mistake. Because, again, voters are not choosing entirely based on policy positions. They're choosing based on their perception that you and your supporters are being a little bit unwholesome, especially on social media. And even though I accept that the Bernie bro myth is a myth and that Bernie Sanders' support now is much more diverse than other candidates, it still remains the case that online, on Facebook, on Twitter, there is a cohort that is willing to go hard after anyone, no matter how small the difference is, and that is hurting
Do you
his
believe
campaign.
that those are the real people in the fight, or are these like Russian bots trying to sow discord?
I think that the Russians don't need to spend their money here. There's enough of our own, and I would go back to sort of the Bernie or bust audience that's out there, and it's real. People who reject any sort of work with the Democratic Party and are using the Bernie versus everyone else conflict in order to basically articulate that anyone who isn't Bernie is corrupt, Democrats are bad, it's a graveyard of social movements, yada yada. And online is the only place these folks have any political power at all.
I wanted to go back to this kind of gnashing between these two camps. So you had said that the voters are pretty much in separate pockets. There's not much overlap. What about the supporters? Do they have their own supporters, or are they cross-pollinating or pulling each other or pulling back and forth from their two sides?
I think that there is a cohort, and I'm going to grossly generalize, of white women who tend to be older, not millennials, and they really wanted a woman president. And they really hated that Bernie sort of was making it harder for Hillary Clinton than they think it should have been. And many of them are now supporting Elizabeth Warren, who has policies that are probably
It's good. Just
All the mics.
okay.
Well, the mics were on. Was just the headphones that we lost, so everybody was still on.
Oh, good. We had. Well, good thing I didn't say my 7 dirty words, because I was just about to. When this kind of things happen, that's the first 7 I like to say.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
just to go back to that point, I think there are people who are ferociously anti-Bernie who, when you ask them about their policy positions, will line up squarely with Bernie voters. And that's a political fact, and it doesn't mean that I'm not a supporter of Bernie Sanders and don't want him to win and couldn't argue that he's a better candidate. But it means that in the long distance run towards policies that change how this country, does healthcare or other things, breaking up monopolies, to use a Warren issue, we're going to need all these people at the ballot box to defeat Trump.
So you think these ladies are going to be like, first of all, to vote for Hillary and then say, I'm going to vote for Warren because she's a woman, doesn't that seem a little odd? Aren't the policy positions slightly different? Why aren't we not paying attention to policy positions over...
Those of us here on the show are probably high information voters, and we care about the details of the plans, and we care about whether someone's been saying the same thing not for 5 years or 10 years, but 20 or 40. And we represent a minority of people who vote. We represent a minority of people who donate. we probably represent a majority of people who are obsessive online about it. And it's important to remember, and this is sort of in every basic political training, is the people in the room are not like normal people. We're different. Our instincts are not the instincts of the average voter, and you need to always be mindful of that gap.
And there is an importance to having a female president as a woman, I'm saying.
Well,
but also, to me, it's the most important thing is, are the policies going to be supportive of women across the country?
Well,
regardless of who puts them in.
I think that having a woman president would be an important milestone for this country. And if that woman president then didn't enact progressive policies, it would be terrible.
Yeah, we don't need Margaret Thatcher.
No.
No, she was a woman, I guess. Oh, you're listening to Waking Up. In the studio with me, Charles Lenchner. Also, King Downing is here every day.
Every day.
Bless this man for coming here every day.
Every day.
Every day when I wake up, I think King's already on the train.
So, but one more thing about sort of the online conflict, and I want to sort of say, I recently posted about it, sort of with a general appeal that Bernie and Warren folks maybe shouldn't attack each other viciously because this is potentially not a good thing. And
what? What kind of feedback did you get to that?
It was great. We had meltdowns. We had people trying to ban each other from the platform. Like it was a perfect. It was one of my. I really enjoyed.
I believe that's why I got this.
Yes.
I got you on here because I wanted you to talk specifically about this.
This was great. I mean, there's one person has deleted all his comments. I mean, it was perfect. But I really appreciate Sam Lewis, DSA comrade, who counted all the comments and said Warren people were trashing Bernie people at a rate of 4-1 on that thread, which speaks to the fact that, we are seeing a particular bubble. It is not the case that one camp's supporters are doing all these terrible things and everyone else is pure as the driven snow. It's not accurate, and no one cares.
Well, there you have it. We did open up the phone lines for callers if you want to call in, 212-209-2877. Are you a Bernie supporter who just can't get behind Warren? We've had a lot of burned out Bernie supporters call. They're more burned out about the Democratic, the Democratic process on the DNC and the rest of them. The D, add your letters behind, that we're not supportive. And they are concerned, about what may happen, what we may see, what kind of foul play we may see. Do you see any movement on the part of the DNC to maybe be slightly more fair? Are there ways to combat this as we get closer?
I'm willing to go to the mat and say that compared to 2015 and 16, the DNC is a little bit more fair. So, for all my friends out there,
because Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepped down, is that?
Well, I'm going to say more than that. When I mentioned the rise of the big donor, I mean Bernie Sanders has remade the Democratic Party in various ways. There are pro-Bernie state chairs in various states. I think of Klebe out in Nebraska as a good example. There are DNC members who were elected as part of they're not in the majority. They're not going to get rid of Tom Perez tomorrow. So I would just say it's mixed. And while we need to follow, it makes sense for activists to follow what the DNC does. For example, they were refusing to do anything about the war in Yemen. They were refusing to support a climate debate. But it's not monolithic. And I know in terms of staff at the DNC that they had a shake-up. And there are people in the building there who would not countenance the kind of what we sometimes call rigging. I don't think that's in the cards anymore.
We have some callers on the line. Let's see what they have to say and or ask. Caller, you are on the air. Your name and where you're calling from.
Good morning. It's
Thomasina. I know your name. I know you by heart.
I'm on my way to work, so I got nothing else to do but call the show.
Oh, well, that sounds good. And listen to the show and hopefully donate at some point. Anyway, go ahead, Thomasina. Your question for Charles.
Yes, I've donated $200. Okay?
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you.
All right, so I wanted to say that I've never joined any party since I was 18 when I originally filled out my registration to vote.
Wait, Thomasina, before we do this, we have 3 callers and about 2 or 3 minutes left. So can you?
Just a quick thing is I don't understand what it means to be a Democrat. Like, I don't understand it because there is no real platform. If the Democrats cannot agree on a political platform, then what the heck is the point of having a party? They can't agree on anything.
Thomasina.
So, like, they have no, I just feel like there's no point to it.
Okay,
You
let's
address
let
that.
Charles address. And thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Well, I'd like to agree with you. The Democratic Party is not
She
what
always makes the best points.
it's very
I mean,
good. The Democratic Party isn't a party. How's that? When we think about parties, sort of in political science, they are entities that have a lot more power historically in places like Europe and elsewhere in the world. Parties are a kind of an institution. In the U.S., it's a ballot line. And the laws regulating how the ballot line works are the responsibility is divided between the state itself and the party structure. It's a quasi-state vehicle. So to me the right way to
So I could run as a Republican, and I could keep all of my.
I mean, many Republicans run as Democrats. I mean,
Obviously. All right. Interesting.
it's
keep that in mind.
better to think of the Democratic Party as sort of one level down from the general election. It's still a site for people to argue and fight and win things and build coalitions. It's not a membership organization that once you have a card that says you're a Democrat, then you are beholden to certain positions. It's much more diverse than that. And in a country as large as this one, until we get proportional representation, that's okay. So we'll fight. We'll have lots of fights inside the Democratic tent, and then we'll go and have those fights nationally.
We have more calls coming in. 212-209-2877. We have a few more minutes before our next guest arrives, I believe. So let's make hay while we have Charles Lenchner from the Real News Network and Organizing 2.0 with us. Caller, you are on the air. Your name, where you're calling from, and your quick question or comment.
Hi, this is Patty from New Jersey.
Hi.
Speaking of Republicans running as Democrats, Elizabeth Warren was a Republican until she was 47, right? That's an interesting detail.
In Massachusetts,
interested-
is that a normal Republican?
Well,
Or
I
are
think
they-
I think she wasn't in Massachusetts for that whole time. She's been a Republican in multiple residences.
Yeah.
I have a
What do we
question.
make, what do we
So
make of that?
isn't
That's a
it-
good question.
Isn't it, I'm just deviating a little bit to it, the party structure and the whole system. Isn't it quite undemocratic to have private corporations that are owning these political parties, as well as running like the debates and all the hoopla leading up to elections and stuff, like is going on right now?
I mean, is it undemocratic for corporations to have the influence in our country that they do? Absolutely. But when you think about specifically about the party structures or the Democratic Party, they're in the middle of a weird shift. The candidates that have the most juice are getting tons of individual donors to give small amounts of money, and they're driving them to the left. But the party structures are much more beholden to people with deep pockets, and that creates a natural tension. How do we convert the party structure to be less beholden to those donors? That might actually involve watching them solicit more small donations from more people. Like how do we get the DNC to actually rely on millions instead of hundreds of thousands? I'm not sure what the path is, but I'd rather they rely on millions than for them to continue to just look at the donor class as their beneficiary.
Charles, unfortunately, you've done such a wonderful job that we're going to invite you back and expect you to get up at this ungodly hour and come in.
I hope the next topic is one I'm not an expert in. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, great. Well, good. We're going to talk about perhaps a regular engagement here on the Waking Up Show with Juliana and King. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, where can people find you? Because everything you say on Facebook is very interesting. I love that. But where do you suggest people go?
If you're on Twitter, I'm at Lenchner. And if you can't spell that, then you can't find me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, you can go on my Facebook page and look up all my Charleses and find this one. Thanks for listening.
It's come to my attention that some of you are confused about who runs this prison.
My name is almost at the top of the list, so I'm not long for this world. We need to be mindful of the will of the people. They still believe in the death penalty.
If you cross me on this, I will take your job, your pension, and your reputation.
What else do you want from me?
Pensé que había pagado por todos mis errores, pero parece que no fue suficiente.
Every single one of you in this God-forsaken prison because of the crimes that you committed.
Great song, Tell Me Lies, to cap off our discussion about the Democratic Party. I hope you watched the debate tonight, and maybe we'll talk about it in the morning. We're getting kind of tired of clipping debate sound effects and putting them on the air, but we'll do it because it is, newsworthy. But we're just really going to skim for like the major highlights because tomorrow we have the chief coming on.
Yes.
Yes.
We have Chief Dwayne Perry from the Ramapo Lenape Nation talking about powwows and modern-day land grabs.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And we also have Dean Baker from the Center for Economic Policy Research, who comes on every so often. But right now, we're moving into something that is awesome, and I'm so glad our guest could be here with us. Tonight is the New York City premiere of the film Imprisoned. It is a very unique story set in Puerto Rico and centers on the themes of love and redemption and revenge and forgiveness and all the good ones, all the good themes. It stars Lawrence Fishburne, Juan Pablo Raba, Juana Acosta, possibly the most beautiful actress I have literally ever seen in my life. I didn't know her until watching this, but
quite delightful to watch on screen.
Fabulous. And more. Isai Morales, Edward James Olmos, John Hurd. The film was written and directed by the guest that we have in our studio today, Paul Kampf, and produced by Equitas Entertainment Partners, whose mission, much like everyone's mission who is part of WBAI, is to make a social impact. They also work to give a voice to the underserved while closing the gender pay gap. So she was paid well, which is nice. And that's both in front of and behind the camera, which we all know is a major problem in the entertainment industry. Today, we're sitting here we're just so happy to have you on the program. Can you talk a little bit about what it was to bring this film to life?
Well, thank you for having me. Good to be up this early in the morning. Well, right now it feels like that. It was a journey. We made the film in Puerto Rico. We were the last film to shoot before Hurricane Maria. So what was important to us was it's a as you talked very wonderfully about our mission and what we're doing, our life in Puerto Rico, and I fell in love with the island, and so did everyone in the cast, and we just went back there and gave it back to Puerto Rico before we opened in New York.
I have the film's trailer, which is, trailers are really visual, and we are live streaming, so we'll be able to play part of it on the live stream. But the trailer
Just the sound of the trailer just gives you a little taste of
Yeah, it's got a harshness to it, but hopefully people see the power of the movie and also the scope that we have in this independent film. It feels and hopefully for an audience looks like a big studio feature.
It's beautiful. Let's
Thank you.
play a little bit of the trailer here, and then we'll go back to talk about the film.
It has come to my attention that some of you are confused about who runs this prison.
My name is almost at the top of the list, so I'm not long for this world. We need to be mindful of the will of the people. They still believe in the death penalty.
If you cross me on this, I will take your job, your pension, and your reputation.
What else do you want from me?
Pensé que había pagado por todos mis errores, pero parece que no fue suficiente.
Every single one of you in this God-forsaken prison because of the crimes that you committed.
The movie is called Imprisoned, and in the movie, Dylan Burke, who is the main character, attempts to move on from his former life as a criminal with his true love, Maria, the beautiful Juana. Is it Juana or does she go
Juana.
Juana?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they put the J on.
Yeah. She's a Juana.
She's fabulous. Well, anyway, Dylan soon realizes that his past is going to continue to harm him when he learns that the new local prison warden, Daniel Calvin, who is played by Lawrence Fishburne, God, how talented,
Amazing,
has not forgiven him for an old crime. Can you talk about the film, the themes of love and redemption? And
yeah. So in many ways, it's an old Hollywood movie because it's a love story between a man who was. The movie picks up with Dylan Burke, played by Juan Pablo Raba, who has been in the prison system, and he's turned his life around through this amazing woman played by Juana Acosta Maria. And they're living
every woman's dream. I can fix you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can save you.
And she does. And,
yes.
And they live this idyllic life. And he's a fisherman, and she opens a restaurant. And then, absolutely, he orchestrates him to be reincarcerated. And really, because he believes that once someone's a criminal, they're always a criminal. That's the argument of the movie. And Dylan represents someone who will not become the person that someone else sees him being. And the warden feels he's going to turn him not only into who he is, but to prove that he's a bad man. And that's really the argument, is who are you today versus who you used to be. And it ends up being a very, very big prison riot movie, but it's really a love story between a man and a woman, and she fights for his rights and ends up inspiring the Puerto Rican people to rise up. So it's very parallel to what happened in Puerto Rico.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I always come up with two questions, and you can pick one or the other. One was that there was a lot of financial and fiscal problems going on, even at the time you were doing the shooting. So I wondered what impact that had. And then the other is that one of my big areas of interest is mass incarceration.
I like
and
this.
So because of the theme in which you produce these things, what was your hopeful impact?
Great.
So you can pick one.
I'm going to start with the second and probably tie it into the first. So one of the things that our company is about is making a difference. So we went to Puerto Rico, and we committed to making the film there. And I went and worked in a prison theater program and did workshops with the incarcerated. And we did something very unprecedented, is we cast 40 formerly incarcerated men in the prison. So all the men you see in this movie are formerly incarcerated. And I cast someone...
Well, that's a perfect typecast.
Absolutely.
And also giving jobs.
And they absolutely employed them. They also became our collaborators, of course, because they had the information. So we were able to bring these people who spent their lives shamed for what they had done, and ask them to bring that experience to us and help us. Which is really important. And then there were 8 men you'll see in the movie who are currently still incarcerated. And on Sunday night, when we went to Puerto Rico, it's never happened before. We screened this movie in front of 1,000 incarcerated men and women. The prison system brought 5 programs together, and we projected it outside, and we provided them popcorn and sodas. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. Scary to think you're having a movie about a prison riot in a prison, but these men and women were so excited to be seen. And what was really moving is there were 3 men in the system who saw themselves on the screen. And that's one of the things that ties in the economic is our commitment is how do you help people move from second chance opportunities into employment. And in Puerto Rico, we've made that impact, and we're trying to do that in Los Angeles and hopefully in New York, where it's not just conversation. We're really trying to train people. So tying into the economic impact, it's really about how to give people jobs. And the Puerto Rican government is really working. It's wonderful. And then it opens at AMC 25 Empire Friday. And that is very important for us, as you know, as an independent film. If we get an audience out the opening weekend, we've had some really great reviews. That helps us extend and open it. And as we move this film across the country, we are making a financial commitment to an organization called peacelove.org, which deals with mental health in the prison system and elsewhere. And so every city this film opens, we pay for a trainer in that city to train those people in their techniques. So our philosophy is we leave the city, we want to leave it changed. And so every city we open in, we make a difference.
I just want to say thank you for doing this work.
Well,
it's not just making a movie. It's making a movement.
Yeah, we're very excited by it, and we're kind of out on a limb. So we really appreciate the conversation, the support.
So people can just go wherever they find out where the movies are playing.
Yeah, if you go to theimprisonedmovie.com, you can find all
Imprisoned,
Yeah, Imprisoned,
Yeah.
The Imprisoned Movie, and same on Facebook and Twitter. It's The Imprisoned Movie, and we have great organizations supporting us. And as you mentioned earlier, we were very conscious about our cast being representative of the island and working with a blended movie. It's 20% Spanish and 80% English.
Well, WBAI is proud to give away 20 free tickets to see Imprisoned in theaters this opening weekend. That's on behalf of Cinema Libre and Equitas Entertainment, and thank you to them. So WBAI has partnered with them to give you, our listeners, 20 free tickets. You can't call in and ask for them all.
That's great.
Yeah, isn't it?
And Friday and Saturday, I'm staying in New York to be there for talkbacks in the evening. So if you get the tickets, come talk to me.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and say you heard it on WBAI.
Absolutely.
So try to, you can't just email in and ask for all 20, but you can email in and ask for pairs of 2. That would probably be good, that kind of thing. This is how you get those. You have to, the first 10 listeners, so you want to get on this right now. Thomasina, pull over the car and email from your phone. Imprisoned tickets, IMPRISONED, tickets, TICKETS, at gmail.com with WBAI in the subject line, and you will be automatically offered a free pair of tickets. That's the first 10 listeners will get a pair, right? So get on in there and do it now. That's imprisonedtickets at gmail.com. Imprisoned opens in New York on September 13th.
Excellent.
At AMC Empire 25 in Times Square. And Paul,
yes,
the director, as you just said, will be hosting that Q&A after the 7:30 showtimes on Friday and Saturday, and that's the time for getting those.
That's great. I feel like I should give away popcorn at that, but I can't really do that.
You're giving away the tickets.
I am.
So
That's great. Great.
Good enough.
Excellent.
That's really fabulous.
Yeah.
Again, WBAI is proud to give away 20 free tickets, so 10 pairs to listeners. So get on that. You got to send an email with WBAI in the subject to imprisonedtickets@gmail.com. What do you hope that this film? What effect do you hope that this film can have?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's really important is I really, it's rare to have an opportunity to speak about how we made the movie. That's important to us, is that because as we imply equal pay and we try to give underserved voices opportunities, that's all behind the scenes. Sometimes you don't see that on the screen. What I'm really hoping is that people come out and they're going to see a movie that makes them think and feel and consider their viewpoint of capital punishment, their viewpoint of redemption and second chances. That to me is really important. As we've screened this film, we showed it in Puerto Rico, and it was really overwhelming for the audience emotionally, because it's a heavy movie, but it's really about the lightness in the dark. And that's sort of the message of the movie. Is it's realistic, it's very honest, but it also looks at sort of an allegory of who we can be. So I'm hoping the audience comes out and connects to it. And as we've shown it, privately to organizations and audiences that have no connection to the community in Puerto Rico, they've loved the film. So I feel like it is, as you said well earlier, it's universal themes. So I hope they can come out and support it and spread the word.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really appreciate you being on the program.
I'm happy to be here.
And the work is amazing.
Thank you.
You've done a full-on. You haven't parsed anything like, well, I guess we'll just underpay our actors because we're doing something nice for the prison system.
Yeah.
You have covered all bases, and you're providing an example to people that you can live with integrity while making art.
It's great, and our philosophy in the company is that as we make feature narratives, that it's really about the themes and connecting to organizations that have the real understanding of those the boots on the ground activism. And therefore, we can use the film to get people out and talk.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. We've been speaking with Paul Kampf. I had to ask you about the.
Yes, it is. It is very German.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
It
In
is.
fact,
Next-
I'd love,
next segment.
Out of time, but the person, how you brought this story together
Yeah.
is so important to me because I
Absolutely.
can't imagine you're just like, I just thought about redemption. I didn't live through. Emailing imprisonedtickets@gmail.com with WBAI in the subject line. You have to tell them I want a pair of the tickets and here's my name to put the tickets under. Yeah, and it's going to be at the AMC Empire 25 in Times Square at 7:30 Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
So you probably want to tell them which night you want to go.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening to WBAI. We have Jeff Simmons from Driving Forces on the line with us. Jeff.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Great. I'm looking forward to today's show, and actually, I can't wait to rush home afterwards to watch the next presidential debate.
Oh, really? Or are you? Is that for real?
I get into these things.
I know. I get into them too. I have to say, it's kind of. I don't watch baseball. I watch this instead. It's entertaining, and then we can talk about it. What are you going to talk about on the show tonight at 5?
So we're going to talk with a political expert about what he's expecting tonight during the debate. That'll be one of the things I expect callers to call in and weigh in on, because you've got 10 of the top-tier candidates in there. But what is driving forces show today is actually a story that was in the Wall Street Journal earlier this week on how the next big cycle of elections here in New York City in 2021 will have, and I'm not joking, about 500 candidates.
I'm gonna run. Let's open. Let's do it.
Imagine all the
501.
Imagine all the robocalls we're going to be getting.
Oh, no. Well, they'll all be wanting to flood onto our shows here on the airwaves on WBAI, I'm sure.
And what's so amazing is that given the AOC aura, that's what one of the lines of questioning will be today when we have the Wall Street Journal reporter Katie Honan on. Is everyone going to be fighting to say they're the most progressive candidate? They're the new AOC. And
I hope
also,
so. Let's have 500 AOCs running against each other
I know.
we can. Yeah.
And some of the news this morning is that previous council members, at least 3 of them, are considering running for their old seats again.
Oh, is that good or not good?
Including our Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, who's term limited, that she'll be one of the people who's going to be leaving office, that she could be seeking her old council seat.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess we'll see. Those council seats are popular.
Yes,
they are.
Taking recycling to a new level. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's
Can't
just,
she just retire into a nice kind of speaking engagement tour kind of. Anyway, Jeff, thanks for joining us on the program. That's Driving Forces tonight at 5 p.m. right here on WBAI or on WBAI.org. We look forward to listening.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Oh, well, what a great show that was. We're all done. You've been listening to Waking Up. We had Charles Lenchner on the first half, Paul Kampf, who's still sitting here with us.
I love this place.
I love you too. We love you too. It's fantastic. It's just so nice to have people in the studio with us.
2 days in a row. It's amazing. We might get used to this.
We're going to get used to this. And then we're going to be like, no more phoners. Hey, the weather today is lovely outside, although it's super hot in here. How did we?
And humid.
We heated it. We humided it. It's 77 degrees outside, going up only to 80, and it looks like it's going to rain around 1:45. They keep pushing it back, so maybe it won't even rain till tomorrow. Who knows? I've only been here an hour and a half, and they keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. There's a lot of news coming out today, so keep your eyes out. I did want to make a brief announcement, unless, King, you had something else that you wanted to say.
No, we're good.
Okay. No more messages from the King by the end of the show? Okay, so Coseka, New York City, and Close the Camps and Earth Strike, New York City. I think we talked about this. is doing a march and a direct action targeting a company that profits at the expense of immigrant lives. These children are caged in concentration camps, and ICE is terrorizing those communities. So these folks are gathering to demand that private companies stop being complicit in the horrific violence against immigrant communities. And that is happening this weekend, Saturday, September 14th. 2019 from 12 to 3. It starts at the New York Public Library, which I must say is a great place to start a march. I've been to many, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The stairs and the lions and the whole nine. Yeah. And also it's air conditioned in that library, so you can go inside, use the bathroom, that kind of thing. Anyway, that's where it starts. It's a march, so they'll probably be marching, so try to get there around noon if you can. That's at the Public Library, 5th Avenue at 42nd Street, New York, New York. And that is this Saturday again at 12 noon. Thanks again for joining us on the program. This has been a really fun one. It's worth getting up at 5. I'm saying
5 a.m. Wow. Yes.
I'm surprised you're here because you have to do the opening tonight.
It's all adrenaline.
It's a long day.
It's all adrenaline.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope you have a huge turnout. And by the way, even if you don't win the tickets, you can still
Please do
go.
come.
Pay the price if you got the money.
And tell your friends.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I look forward to meeting thousands of your listeners this weekend.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you tomorrow when we have the Chief, the King, and Dean Baker.
A dean, a chief, and a king. That's good.
Excellent. Have a great one.